Hi, we're working on pajama pants. We are doing the casing for the elastic. So in the last video, we pinned this all around at 1 1/4 inches, and I double checked that with my ruler after I was finished and went around. There's 1 1/4 inch. There's 1 1/4 inch. So it's looking pretty good. 1 1/4 inches. And make sure you're on inches and not centimeters. I know that's a mistake that is easy to make. A couple people made that mistake in class. In centimeters, you'd be around 4 centimeters. So if that's what you're reading, just flip it around and you'll have inches. We are going to sew all along the edge here with just a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That the presser foot itself will give you a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you match up against that. We're not going to sew the entire way around because we need to leave about a 3-inch gap for our elastic to get through. So in order to remember where to stop, I put in double red pins where I want to stop so I don't forget and just keep sewing all the way around. And like I said, you want to make sure that your fabric isn't tucked all the way up and around and curling around, because then your elastic will get caught. Then you'd have to take this out and trim it. The other thing you want to make sure is that it is folded under at least a 1/4 inch. So that way you're going to get a nice finished edge. Make sure your machine is no longer on basting stitch, because that's the last thing we would have sewn. I've got 2.2 for my length. That works pretty well. If you do a really, really tight stitch, you will have a hard time taking it out if you need to. So you don't want to go too tight with your stitch length, or too short, I should say. Okay, so I'm putting this in. I've got it over to the edge. The edge of my presser foot is lined up with the edge of my band for my elastic, so the bottom edge close to the pants right here. I'm going to put my presser foot down, put my needle down. I am going to back stitch because I'm not going all the way around. If you're sewing a complete circle, you just keep stitching, and that serves as back stitch for the first part. You can back stitch a little bit after that. But since we are not doing a complete circle, I will back stitch at the beginning and at the end. This seam is probably the most important in terms of being accurate, because if you start straying up into your waistband and back down, you're not going to be able to get your elastic through. So be careful, keep your eye on the edge of the presser foot and the edge of the fabric. Make sure they match up, go slowly, and you'll thank yourself later. So here we go. Back stitch. The pattern actually calls for 1 inch elastic with this 1/4 inch seam allowance, but that's just too challenging. So that's why we're using 3/4 inch. That makes this a little bit easier. It does give you a tiny bit of leeway with these stitches, but you still need to be really accurate for this part for it to work well. Take out your pins as you come to them. I should also have mentioned I'm making sure I'm not sewing through 2 sides of the pants at once. I took my little part of my sewing machine off that holds all my bobbins so that I could put the pants over. So the bottom of the pants is actually a little bit under the machine, and I'm just going in a loop, if that makes sense. When you get to the seams, those seams should be nice and flat and sewn open from our last sewing step. Okay, so I think you get the idea, and I'm just going to keep sewing until I come to my double red pins. I don't know if you can see that there, and then I'll stop. So I'll meet you the next video.